hour. I think this, if I feel it's a good stopping point, but I'm cool with, I don't have anything until like lunch. So my kids start running around upstairs.
Hold on, let me
My
see
wife
that I
will
have.
probably hop on and off the feed. And
Not a problem.
Make sure I'm not doing anything stupid.
Okay, go live.
You want us to stay muted when we're not talking, or does it matter?
Yeah, you can mute yourself just so we won't have any feedback. That'll be great. Let's check to make sure we're streaming live over on Facebook. Just checking the feed, making sure that everything is working. And if you want to, you can go over to that feed and you can share it out to
We're live,
your
Marki.
Facebook platform. We're live?
Yep.
All right. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. How's everyone doing? We're going to give everybody just a few seconds to hop on. And I'm going to close out of, no, I can keep it open. Come back over here with us. All right. We're here for the race discussion today. How's everyone doing? Y'all okay? Just give me the head nod. Everybody okay? Wonderful. Hey, Andy, how you doing today?
Still breathing.
You're breathing, and you're looking good. I know that yesterday we had a walkthrough and Sarah wanted us to kind of let everyone know how we got here. Let me say this. We've had a lot of questions on how did the six of us come to be together, and want everybody to know Andy and I have had a relationship now for 8 years through real estate. And last week he told me the time, 7:35 a.m. I reached out to Andy because I wanted to highlight the efforts of the Chicago South Side, in particular, Latalo McGee and Whitney Hampton, because I didn't think that they were receiving enough publicity for all of the hard work they were doing on behalf of the real estate community. And Andy, when I reached out to you, you were on a morning run, you stopped. I've reached out to you before in the past because I don't make assumptions that you know what's going on the South Side of Chicago. And when I reached out to you, you told me that you wanted to put this panel together. And due to the fact that every person on this panel, not only are they local leaders, they're state leaders, they're national leaders. We've all been through leadership training with the Illinois Association of Realtors. And we had just got off a call with the national president of the Women's Council, Brenda Lee. I said, you know what? We can continue a discussion we've already started. And so here we are today to discuss race in the city of Chicago. Andy, I know you're going to facilitate us and do us well. We appreciate you for reaching out from the concept of seeking first to understand. You don't profess to have the answers, but you've been willing to ask us questions, and we welcome your questions today.
Marki, yeah, thank you for just for everything that you do and everybody else. So I want to just first, I come from a place of, I'll just throw it out there. I'm a white middle-aged man. I turned 40 in November. I am completely inadequate to be even in the midst of this. I'm here to learn. I figure if we're gonna have this discussion, why not have everybody benefit from it? So I'm very ill-equipped to be in all of your presence, and I want to learn. There's a lot that's going on. I think I shared with you yesterday when we were kind of spitballing what would people get the most value out of. I'm embarrassed to say that I've just absorbed more information on racism, systemic racism, how it affects just economics in general and real estate that I have I've done that more in the last 2 weeks than I have in my entire life. I'm just gonna say it. So that being said, I come from a place of utmost humility and just honored that we can have this discussion because it needs to be had. So I would like, I'm sure most people watching this know everybody, but whatever everybody mind very briefly, 15 seconds, 30 seconds, just introducing themselves, how long they've been in the industry. Obviously, people can read because your name's on there. And then, maybe which company you're with or how you're involved in Chicago real estate. Marki, I'll divert back to you. Take it away. we'll start with you.
So my name is Marki Lemons-Ryhal, real estate keynote speaker and international best-selling author. I have the opportunity to travel the country training real estate professionals on social media and technology.
Hi, I'm Sarah Ware. I'm a broker in Chicago, Ware Realty Group, predominantly South Side City broker, and been a broker licensed since 1997.
Nykea?
I'm Tracey Royal.
Oh, sorry.
Can you hear me, Andy?
I was
Tracey
calling on people.
Royal.
But...
I've been in the industry 23 years. Absolutely still love what I do. I practice primarily on the west side of Chicago and the western suburbs.
Thanks, Tracey.
Good morning. Thank you, Andy. I am Nykea Pippion McGriff. I am a broker with Dreamtown Realty. I've been a broker for 15 years, and I travel all over, but primarily the south side of Chicago.
Hi, everyone. I am Carrie Little. I am the designated managing broker and owner of Terramark Realty Group. I have been in the business since 2001 as a licensee. I started in real estate in 1997 working in commercial. And I also travel all over the United States speaking, and my goal is to take what I learn, educate the agents in my office and agents all over the United States.
Thank you. And I am Andy Burton. I run, at least I try to run, Chicago Real Producers. It's a platform that connects realtors to solid businesses, and we do a free monthly publication where we feature anywhere from 5 to 7 realtors. We run private quarterly events, and yeah, that's kind of it. As you can see from my virtual background, that is not a mural painting on my wall. That is a virtual background. So just want to clear that up for everybody. So let's just dive into it, not candy coat it. There's been a lot of talk about just racism, systemic racism. What is it? What does it exist? Obviously, you can go on Google and type it in, and the Wikipedia answer will come. The canned, Wikipedia answer will come up. But in your own words, and this is open to any of the panelists, in your own words, would you mind defining systemic racism? Yeah.
I think for me, a component of that is the implicit bias. A lot of people seem to think that racism is this big, broad thing. And if I'm not overt in my actions or things I say and things I do, I'm not a racist. But I think the other part to that is there is an implicit bias that kind of leads you into that direction. And it could be the things you say that are offensive and you don't know they're offensive. Certain perceptions, certain biases that you have about people of color, that will prompt a person to just do something which will end up being overtly offensive. So that's sort of the way I see this level of systemic racism.
Thank you, Tracey. Andy, I'm going to jump in and speak on a different component as a mother. An example of systemic racism to me is the zip code that I live in kind of determines where my child can go to school. And based on that, the level of education, the access to quality instructors, the level to extracurricular activities, and in the case of my youngest son, access to quality teachers who have specialty training for kids with autism or kids with special needs. So I'll give, and I might get emotional about this because everybody knows how I feel about my kids, but especially when I talk about the search for care for my son that has autism, having to drive to Wheaton, Illinois, about an hour drive from the city of Chicago to access, quality doctors, therapists, all that fun stuff, and really, really having to drive outside of your community for some basic needs for your kids. That is an example, that I want to share. I know we're here to talk about real estate, but I think that should drive a very specific example home as to the disparities in the city of Chicago based on your zip code.
And
What?
we'll probably get personal. I'm sorry.
What?
I
Oh,
cut you off.
well, we're a very personal group of people.
Yeah.
I live across the street from a school, yet my son does not attend that school. My son attends school in Bridgeport, where African Americans make up 17% of the population of his school. And for me, it was about taking him out of a BC school into an A- school. And the fact that we're spending $10,000 on real estate taxes and our property values are high, why don't I have a quality school directly across the street? Like, only thing I do with the school across the street is pull in front of it to put my son on a bus every single day. But now you've added to his commute time to and from school, which now he has to wake up earlier than other students who potentially live in Bridgeport. And so consistently we see that. But what I would say, all of us, I think all of us are real estate educators in a sense. There are times that I have gone to the association to teach classes, and I've been on the elevator with students, and I know a realtor a mile away, and they are just rude. They won't let me on the elevator, they let the door close, and I remember the face. And when I walk into the classroom and they realize I'm their teacher, you should see their facial expressions change. And I just laugh. Heck, you just ran me over in the elevator to get your butt here. You had no idea who I was, and you didn't care. And it was strictly based on either the fact that I'm Black or I'm female. And oftentimes I don't know the difference between whether it's sexism or racism.
And this is Sarah. I'll just jump in real quick. And I guess as all of us as real estate professionals, do we oftentimes run into, there may be a client that's treated a little different from the way they live and from a listing presentation? I think people need to ask themselves, are you providing the same level of service across the board? Or, you know what, they may not need this brochure, or they may not need XYZ just because it's located in a different area. And so I think those are things that are, you know, like you all were speaking of the level of service. We have the same, I want to say, penalties with taxes and things like that. And they assume we're on the same playing field, but we are not, based on where we live, the zip code, and, you know, just based on this census. So it'd be interesting to see who responds to that. But just as real estate professionals, I think we've all kind of, you know, depending on who the client is, do we oftentimes feel that they're not getting the same level of service based on, you know, where their zip code is and who they look like. So that's some ways that I think people don't really think about it from just a small, like, is it an extra brochure they need, or is it extra, you know, they may not need this because of XYZ, because that's some bias that has been already created in their mind.
And so, Andy, after getting all of these questions, and then after seeing your post and reading your feed last night, so I have an identical twin. And so I'm like calling my sister who's in her doctorate program, and she's been reading all these books on race. So I'm like, I need a really good example of systemic racism based on some of the posts. And everything kept going back and forth. And I know we talked about the schools, we talked about what happens in the city of Chicago. And she said, here's a really good example. Native Americans or indigenous people, the people that don't want to be called Indians, have to walk around with paper to prove that they are Native Americans, the people that were born in what we now call the United States or North America. White people don't have to walk around with a card that says they're white. And to take it a step further, Black people don't walk around with a card. We just walk into the room and you let us know we're Black. That's the example I have, and that brings it to a whole different level of systemic racism.
Yeah, there's many layers to that.
Yeah, I'm going to give you another example when we talk about systemic racism. There's no secret to the history of segregation in Chicago, and I think that's evident even in our real estate practice today. So as I was preparing for this call, everyone knows I love data. So I went over to MRED, our MLS. I pulled up InfoSparks, which is our housing statistical tool. And I pulled up 60619, I pulled up South Shore, and I pulled up Lincoln Park and 60628. So a couple of zip codes and a couple of MLS areas. And I want to just give you guys the median sales prices as of the end of May. So May 2020. Median sales price in 60619, which is an area I know Sarah and I practice in pretty regularly. 120,500 is the median sales price. South Shore, 90,000. And that's up 7.1% when we look at year over year. Lincoln Park, 555,000 is the median sales price, and then 60628, 107,000. So we're still experiencing this. Those of us who are servicing these areas, we have to work 3, 4, 5 times as hard to make the same level of income as someone who just decides to focus on Lincoln Park. Now, again, Chicago has 77 different neighborhoods. This is just a quick snapshot of, you know, what's happening in parts of the city versus other parts of the city. And I think that level of understanding needs to be had for all of our brokers who are servicing the entire city.
You're working overtime, and I'll be, as I've self-reflected on this, how we run our standings, like our publication, it's hyper niche, so it goes to the top 500 agents based on 606 zip codes, and I just sit before you like I can do better.
So I wouldn't be in that. We wouldn't be in that publication, is what I heard you say.
I don't know what the hell to say. Like I don't. I'm just gonna air out my dirty laundry. So, and maybe we need to rethink it. Because you're absolutely right. You got someone whose average price point is 100K or 150K, and then you have, a realtor who has a, maybe more or less of what people would consider a more affluent sphere. They do a $1.3 million deal, and I hit these numbers. So I mean, maybe we need to rethink, base it on units and volume. I mean, there has to be, thank you for sharing that, Nykea. It just sheds light on, it's not that people aren't working hard. It's just that that's the system that that's their sphere, how they start.
And this is in no way a slight to people that service that area. That's just where they are, and that's just, but it's just kind of just opening up, just having an open mind to, because I mean, even though my area, it has a low median income, median sales price, I love where I live. I am ingrained in my community, and I would love it and so if someone comes from Lincoln Park, I'm sure they don't love their community no less. We all want the same things at the end of the day, but just kind of just kind of being aware of what the other side, what the other side faces, because we still have to pay taxes. We want good education, we want good service. We all want the same baseline things. We may be just a little bit behind when it comes to the traditional services, but that does not mean that we are going to fight any less or less harder for those. So, I mean, I have friends that service Lincoln Park, Northside, and that's great because it's just, the mecca of who we are as leaders, just being ingrained across the board. And that's something that we would service as well, but just to have the knowledge on both sides to kind of understand, like, just because we don't appear in a Real Producers magazine does not mean we're not a real producer. So, and that's kind of the, this stigma sometimes, and, because you're, if you're a real top producer, you get accolades for different things. You're able to access certain things, and not that we don't want the access because of lack of effort, but just know that we have other, things faced, and we can still break bread with all brokers across the city and have a great time, because at the end of the day, we are, we love our industry.
And Andy, if I could add something, and I hear this all the time, in these zip codes that Nykea mentioned, we have a lot of brokers who practice in these communities. We have a lot of investors who invest in these communities. And when we talk about this term gentrification, we have folks who purchase, they escalate the values because it's about the bottom line and the money element. And then the same people who grew up in these communities, who lived in these communities, they have families in these communities, all of a sudden overnight, we no longer can live in these communities because we can no longer afford to. So I think that people should also start to look at, these communities that we practice in, they are breeding grounds for making money, but no one wants to live here, but you price out the people who want to stay. And I think we need to start shedding some light on that as well.
And who are invested and have gone up there. I mean, this saying is, I live in Humboldt Park. So, it's easier to move to a more better neighborhood than try to make your own neighborhood better. And that's just flat wrong. You have people there who are wanting to stay there. They're in it for the long haul, and then they get pushed out. Do you mind sharing a time this year when you have felt discriminated against? It could be real estate related. It doesn't necessarily have to be. But everybody's laughing. But would you? Anybody can start. I would just be curious.
So when we talk about discriminated, let's be clear, Chicago is the most segregated city in this country, racially and economically. So oftentimes in the communities that we live in, we don't feel that way because they're all Black communities, period. And I would say I'm in the Bronzeville area, so I'm a little bit more on the north end of the South Side. So now I have a lot of people moving into the community, and we're diversifying. So they're not coming into the community and going to treat me bad because they're the minority of the community right now. It's at the moment that I decide to step outside of my community that I realize that I'm Black. And let me say this, I can go to any real estate event and feel it every time. And I decided this because I was thinking about this. I think I see it more in my travels, and I've started to mimic white people because what they want to know is, who is this little Black girl, right? And not only am I Black, right, then I'm also a woman, and then I'm also overweight, and that's a whole nother classification, right, because they view overweight people as being lazy. But they want to know, how am I sitting in first class? Or how is it that I'm A-list preferred? Or how is it that I'm eating sushi and drinking sake at the bar with them? And so I mirror them. They wear Ferragamos, I wear Ferragamos. They carry to me, I carry to me. They wear a certain headset, I wear that headset. So that when they come and they give me the look, I need them to see me. And I need them to identify that everything you got going on, I also have going on. But why do I have to do that? Why can't I just rock my Nike gym shoes with a colorful backpack? But I had to go and mirror, right? Because I already know they have no anticipation of just an educated person. And oftentimes we're discriminated against just across the board, and we don't know which way it's coming from. So yeah, I experience it. And I would say, when we ask that question, keep in mind coronavirus. So many of us right now have been sheltering, right? So we might not see it as much as we were once seeing it because we aren't stepping outside of our segregated community.
I'll jump in. I will say, as recent as maybe 3 weeks ago, I was out on appointments with clients. We all know sometimes that the appointments can kind of overlap with another broker who may have a 15-minute or 20-minute window before you. And so both brokers arrived there at the same time with our clients. The sellers were still home and allowed access. Mind you, this was a very diverse community, and the owners of this property were white. The other brokers stepped up, and there were no questions asked. It was a very welcoming moment. And I'm watching this, my clients are watching this. They finished their appointment, they left. The minute I stepped on the porch and I said, I am the broker here confirmed to show your property, I got hit with a series of questions. Where is your business card? Do you have a license? Now, I'm from the old school, so I still carry my pocket card, but I know that I have to do that because some of these properties have alarms, and I wouldn't want to walk into a property and have the alarm. These are just things that we think about and we have to have in the back of our minds. I think I had a question like, did you confirm with my representative? And I'm like, I wouldn't be here if I didn't. But this is the one that got me. Like Marki said, we're in coronavirus, so we wear masks. I had my mask on, my clients had their mask on, and I think this person was searching for another reason to deny me access. He said, well, do you all have masks? And I'm standing there like appalled, like, you do not see this thing covering my face and behind my ears. And at that point, my client said, you know what? I don't want to see this house. Let's go. And I'm like, are you sure? And when we got to the car, we were off on a sidebar. I said, well, I understand. She says, the other broker didn't go through that kind of scrutiny, and she had on jeans and a t-shirt. And you have on a business suit, you're representing your realtor pen, you look very professional to me. Why did you have to go through those series of questions? We both looked at each other and we knew. We knew. So this was 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago. I didn't have to go back a year. This was 3 weeks ago.
I'm so sorry.
What Tracey just said, you see we're all shaking our heads, that's common. That's common. That we have to, and we see it, we time it. Let me be clear. I think every person on this call, we're record keepers. So we time things, we take photos, we take videos, we record it because we know what's coming. And it generally starts with the look. It's the look in the eye. It's not the same smile you just had, right? There's a smile just disappears. Whoa, wait a minute now, because I came at you with a smile. So I'm expecting this, I'm mirroring, right? Smile back. And so what Tracey just said is common everyday real estate, not only from licensees, but from buyers and sellers, investors and tenants.
So, and I had this conversation with Marki. I've been quarantined and most of my travel got changed. So I was like, I really don't have anything that happened this year. I even went to my husband. I'm like, has anything happened to you in the real estate world or anywhere where you've experienced racism? And he was like, no. So I thought I'd share something that did happen to me when I opened my own company a year in, and it's only been now 3 years. And I'm just going to set the stage. And I didn't tell the whole story last time. I was at a real estate company teaching a class not too far from where I live. I walk into the bathroom, finish in the bathroom, wash my hands, and a loan officer came up to me and said, hey, Carrie, are you opening an African-American company? And my response was, I'm not Black. Because at this point, I figured, if you're going to ask me that, I'm coming back at you this way. And what a lot of people don't know, Andy, is my mother is white. My mother is, my grandfather came from Holland. And I can only trace back, and my grandmother, we can trace her back to our roots, back to the Revolutionary War. And yes, I could be a daughter of the Revolutionary War, so I'd probably make some people's heads turn. And then on my father's side, we can only go back like 3 generations. So I can find people back as far, just for like 3 generations. So when this loan officer said this to me, all I could think of was, why do you think it's okay to ask me if I'm running an African-American company? Why can't I just open a company?
I'm curious, did he have a response for that? Or... You're muted.
It was a she, because we were in the ladies' bathroom. But that's okay. So she was shocked when I said I'm not Black. Now that's a whole nother day for that conversation. But she was taken back, and I was just like, why would you even ask me that? And she couldn't even answer.
Yeah. And that's recurring. And I mean, I will just, like, I just want, for people watching this, like, I have never experienced that. And I just want to stand before you and say, like, I'm so sorry. Like, it's flat. I don't think anybody watching this would be like, yeah, that's right, that's okay. I don't think anybody, but it's like, what are we doing about it? So I'm glad, like, if anything, when we get to the end of this will just enlighten people, and being this is going on, and it's not just a one-off. I mean, this is recurring. So
here's what's even more interesting is, remember, I went home every day to a white mother, and I'm an identical twin. So that means all holidays, there were all white people because my mother was a single parent. So when I see you, Andy, when I walk into the room, I see my family.
Sure.
So when a white person responds and gives me the look, you got to imagine. So I have racism in multiple different fashions. Like this, to me, I mean, it makes me sad to hear that everything that I go through, I had to explain to my kids because I have kids that are 3 different colors. So when I see you, I see my family. So why can't someone just see me as Carrie, like Nykea said?
Nykea, sir, I'll give you guys an opportunity if you want to, if there was a time that you have felt.
Andy, as and Marki actually alluded to this earlier, as an instructor for MLS, sometimes I'll go into the office to teach, and people will just assume that I'm one of the students. And so I usually get there a little bit early just to kind of get things set up. Maybe I've got to respond to some client emails, all that fun stuff. So I'm usually not standing in front, I'm usually sitting in one of the seats. And so the visual shock of when I stand up to begin to teach the class is often, well, it's interesting. I like to use the word interesting, but you know, usually I win them over by the end of class, but typically there is a visual like, oh, and I've even had people say, oh, you're the instructor. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. I'm ready to get started. Are you ready to learn? So, I mean, we don't have much time, but you know, I can give you a whole list of fun or not so fun experiences as it relates to real estate, being Black in the real estate community in Chicago.
Well, and the question is why should you have to win them over? I mean, you're the instructor. You come from authority. I don't have to win my kids over. I'm their freaking dad. You know, it's like, maybe it's a bad analogy, but you know what I mean. It's like you come from position. So.
That's a very valid point, and I'm glad that you made that statement. Why should we win them over? Because that's how I feel in many, especially when you're starting. We haven't talked about the volunteer world, but when you start volunteering in different organizations, it's like, oh, you're Black, but so there's some qualifier as to I'm different, or I'm not the same as some of the other Blacks, for lack of a better term. So that but is an issue.
And the fortunate part is, I think, I don't want to say like we've become used to it, but I think because we created a hashtag around some of our little, we won't share this call, but just we just
you know, we're supposed to, this Marki marketed this as being an open conversation, so we're going to deliver.
We can still have fun.
But you know, we're glad that let's say that we're glad the restaurants are starting to open back with rooftop, because there may, you know, conversations afterwards, and I think that's what gets us through. But the thing is, we know to come in prepared. Like when Tracey, she knew that she had to go in armed, so that's just something that we know to do. And maybe it's, you know, it's ingrained in us because we know that's just the way the world is, but it's like you may be asking for some instances. We just know it probably happens every day, but we're so used to being on guard to what would happen if, as to you may not even think of these things. But we like, I mean, I know Nykea has her pocket card on a phone. I'm like Tracey, old school, keep it in my purse. But we know at any time can't go out without your business card if you're meeting the seller, especially in the suburban communities. We know to make sure we are within that window, even though we should, and if we're not, we call to make sure, and just to do all the, you know, check all the boxes. Where somebody can come in, like Tracey was saying, they had jeans, t-shirt, and when your clients start questioning it, then that's when it becomes like, oh, okay, but we're so, you know, we're just ready and armed, and then afterwards we just call us on the phone and go, here we go with hashtag Real Estate Chronicles. So,
well, and like what I hear is it's like you're almost conditioned. like that you're on guard, and that's not like, it shouldn't be like that. Like, you know, somebody nudges you in your kidney, and you know, that my brother's, you know, growing up, you know, you nudge someone in the side, you nudge someone in the side, and you know, it's like when they walk by, you know, you're kind of on guard. So it shouldn't, like, it just shouldn't be like that. And thank you.
Yeah, I think this goes back to the implicit bias. Like, people should ask themselves, what am I thinking that people can't see? And is my behavior reflecting that? So when you ask, well, why should it be the but, and why do we have to go the extra mile? Because I know someone may be thinking, oh, I don't have enough years in the industry to know my craft, or things that other people can get away with, I can't. I will always be called into question because of the implicit bias. I will always be questioned. I will always be second guessed, but someone else may not. It was totally okay for this young lady to show up on a real estate appointment with jeans, gym shoes, and a t-shirt. And it was welcoming. Come on in. Not, are you even a realtor? Just come on in. But for me, I have to look the part because I know I won't be questioned.
This is kind of a good segue. So when you hear or see people in your circles make biased comments, that you're pretty sure, you know, they're racist comments, or, you know, based on statements or just history. Like, do you say something? Why or why not? Or what's a tactful way that you bring it up?
Let me say this. I'm clear that certain people don't say things in front of me because they know that I'm direct. So it's just, and I've been in the room as the only Black person, and this was a recent event, and for some reason, all the white people were sitting at one table, and I was sitting at a table by myself. And the whole table looked over at me. And so one of the guys said, well, maybe I should come back and sit with Marki. And I told him, I said, no, I know how to stand alone, right? And they said, no, you know, Marki don't play, so she might call you to the carpet. No, if I had a problem with what you were saying, I will let you know. So I've noticed that as people have gotten to know me, or their perception of me, especially because of all the video content I put out, they know that I'm direct. So I've noticed that people will say things to other people that they would never say to me, because they already know my personality is that I'm going to say something. So now that lets me know, not only are you biased, right, but essentially you're a punk, you're a mark, right? Because you picking and choosing the weakest of the people in order to say some of this ignorant nonsense that you have to say. Come on and just, you know, man up on it and own it and say what you have to say. So what I've noticed, if I see other people experiencing, I definitely have dialogue around it, because not only should I not experience it, I would say as a woman of God, I'm always saying in my mind before I act a fool, what would Jesus do? That's my whole, in most of these conversations, what would Jesus do? And then I say, treat these people like you would want your children to be treated. And this is a constant conversation that I have with myself to personally soothe myself, so that I won't do anything to jeopardize the legacy. Because see, everybody on here today got something to lose. So we got to have another conversation. Don't jeopardize the legacy.
In addition to that, I mean, are we going to talk today, Marki? Okay. Well, I mean, we have to consider the fact that we also have to consider the fact that, oh, we could be labeled as an angry Black woman if we speak up for ourselves. So I've got to pick and choose. Sometimes it's just like, you know, I'll text some of the women on this call and say, you know what, ladies, can we meet at Jog Grill at Hyde Park? Because I need to have some water or maybe something stronger, because we need to decompress. We need to walk through or to diffuse a situation in which I chose not to engage, or maybe my peers chose not to engage.
And then sometimes we need to meet for water as well. There may be a response to some email that was sent that we may have received and said, okay, let's just throw this out there. How do I sound? Am I coming off XYZ? Because in addition to being Black woman, we basically are all entrepreneurs for the sense, so we have a business sense, and then we're volunteers. So we want to make sure we want to get our point across in a way that's not seen so many different ways. And so that's why water is needed, and, you know, and some to talk it through. And so I think that's another thing that's important, to have peers that you can talk to that are experiencing the same thing that you experience, and know how to handle that. Because just when you think you've done something and gone through it, then you hear Nykea may say something, Tracey, Marki, Carrie, whatever, whomever, and say, oh, that, and then you get appalled for like 10, maybe 5 seconds, and then you just kind of go on. And no, Ja Grill is not open. I think they're opening in 3 days.
That's a good point, Sarah. Ja Grill, that's a good point too. But yeah, we have to craft. I've learned a long time ago to be strategic in your responses. So it's twofold. If you don't get a response and you get silence, you probably should take some self-reflection and say, what did I do wrong? What did I say wrong? Or did that come out wrong? But I always use my responses to be also a teaching moment. So that's why you have to kind of put a little more thought into it. So you're not necessarily going off on someone, but you want to respond. But if you pay attention to the way the response is crafted, I'm hoping that there's a learning moment. Like you read between the lines that I'm teaching you, here's how we're going to do this, but don't do that again. Don't do that again.
I would be curious if anybody has an example. If not, that's cool. Like where maybe you had to, well, hey, this is, somebody did something. Hey, this is what I was thinking. And then, you know, Marki's aura came on you and said, what would Jesus do? And then you crafted it. You crafted it in a different fashion. I'd be curious if anybody has a live example that they'd be willing to share. Is it nobody? Okay, well, next question here. I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Oh, well, I'll just say this.
We just don't want to share them.
Right, because then
Yeah.
you might be able to tie it back to the person, because there are scenarios. But I want to, Andy, I want to be open and say there were times when I wouldn't step up because of being a Black female and the idea of someone thinking that I was going to be angry. But now, it's been several years, I will say something. And I had someone 2 years ago in Peoria at the public policy meetings. So all of you guys can try to figure out who you are. Someone sitting next to me made a racist comment. But let me say, I didn't have to correct. He looked at me and he said, that was really bad. And I said, yes, it was. And I had to calm myself down and get up and walk out because that's how mad I was. Mm-hmm. And he actually was walking around with some note cards because he hand wrote a note card. I don't know if he changed from it, but I think because I was sitting there, and sometimes people get comfortable with me because they know I come from I come from 2 different groups, diverse groups. He then realized I shouldn't do that. So hopefully he never does it again. But it did happen at a public policy meeting 2 years ago, January 2029.
Andy, I want to say it's not that I think we all respond, but I think the way we respond depends on where we are. So Marki, we know when she's at home responding to the kids, we know it's a different way. We know Nykea will snatch little Artie up. I'm like, Artie, I don't want to see you get snatched up today. But if we're out in public, we may want to dial that down a bit because of a perception. But I've seen people dial it up in their privacy. You know, I'm looking, Arthur, we don't want your mama to turn up today because we know she will. But when you're in a public setting or when you're in volunteer world or whatever, we just respond differently. We think a little harder. And it's all in your comfort zone. So I know when Marki's talking to our children and, you know, Temple Bug, we know when, you know, Tracey's have to pull her to the curb, we know she's comfortable with that, but that may not be the same situation when we are in a different setting. So we we have to, this, like Andy, I don't know how it is with your children or whatever. Is it some sort of differences when you have to get them together, so to speak? But we think, you know, that maybe that's that Marki, what would Jesus say moment, but we definitely know we are aware of our surroundings. I think a little bit more than most people, because we always have to know that we are being watched. And so, not to say we kind of mute that, but we are cognizant of the fact that there may be some pushback depending on what we do in front of who we, you know, what we do in front of the audience that we serve.
Absolutely. And Sarah brings us to a really good point. And I believe Marki spoke to this. You know, in her words, I snatch Artie up because in public, he's already prepared, or I'm attempting to prepare him to avoid any of these situations that have brought us to this conversation today, that continue to bring us to these same conversations. Because unfortunately, I don't think what's happened to Breonna Taylor, what's happened to George Floyd, unfortunately, they're still going on right now. And so my role as a mother is to protect my cubs as best I can, if you will. And so getting them together or snatching them up at home is so that when we go out in public, there are no problems, because everyone that has met me around my kids knows that I am a lioness. What does the lioness do in the pack?
Protect the cubs.
Exactly. So you already know what you won't do is say anything to my children in public, because they have already been fully trained at home.
Is it fair though that we have to train them, like we have to snatch them up, and that we can't all, we have to guard our words, we have to protect them? Like, I often feel when I leave my home, as a married person, you pick your battles, right? When we leave our house, we're picking our battles. We decide what to say, how to say it, when to say it. And I will say this, because I've been pretty vocal about it. We're all in some leadership capacity. And what I want the world to know, we want more Black leaders, okay? And we've all experienced failure. We didn't get everything we wanted the first time. The only thing we do is keep on trying, because what we know, we are good enough. It might not happen when we think it's going to happen, but it has happened for every last one of us. So with that being said, I wouldn't want anyone Black to think that we're any different, because guess what? Because we're in leadership roles, oftentimes we've been told that we're not Black. We are as Black as they come. All right. We lay our heads. Carrie's always lived West, but my girl, Tracey, she West Side, ride or die. We South Side, ride or die. What I want to say though, and this is when being Jesus-like sometimes gets the best of me, I think it is unacceptable for people in leadership roles to not speak and address the entire room, the entire hallway. I am absolutely sick of people in leadership positions walking past as if they don't see you. That is a poor leader. That is a horrible leader. And at the moment I see it, and we see it at every meeting we attend, I want to say to them, clearly your mama didn't raise you right. Because see, me and Nykea and Tracey's baby, they gonna speak to you. They got to speak to you because we taught them better. They speak to everyone in the room. If you're going to speak to one person, you speak to everyone. So there's a lack of people who think they're in a leadership role. They don't act as leaders.
Well said.
I probably said too much.
No, I think that's a good segue, because, you know, we all know that I'm always trying to focus on moving forward or solutions. And Andy, you started this conversation by saying, you know, and a part of our conversation yesterday, if I may share, was you said, I don't know what I don't know. And in order to move forward, when you look, you know, the owners that are watching this, the leadership that's watching this, look at your leadership team. How can you have a reflection of your membership if your leadership team is they all look like you? There is no way that you can understand the nuances of different cultures and ethnicities if your leadership team does not reflect your membership makeup. Your staff, Carrie just noted, how about staff? Absolutely. You can't share that same experience if your staff, your leadership team, again, the people who are leading your organization have the same understanding. I think if I want anyone to take anything away from this, and there are hopefully lots of nuggets, we all have a different understanding, even though we're all Black. We still all have different experiences. And so that is what is sorely missing when I look at real estate leadership. So I'm looking at, 3 broker owners on this call. But when we pull up the list of real estate brokerages, let's look at the list of how many minority designated brokers are there. What's the percentage of minority broker-owned shops? Are our smaller shops given the same tools, more tools, or less tools than some of the bigger shops who can afford to implement some of these technology benefits, back office benefits? So when I'm looking at moving forward, we need to start looking at our membership as a whole and making sure where can we as a whole fill the gaps? What are we missing? And I think if you're constantly doing that as an owner, as a broker, a designated managing broker, that's going to keep the issue on diversifying. Not only, I think some people say, well, you know what? I have women, so I'm diverse. Or I have another ethnicity, I'm diverse. What about diversity in thought? Diversity in age, gender? There are lots of ways to be diverse. You can't just pick one and say, oh, okay, I'm done. I've checked the box. And I'm off.
I'm going to piggyback up. Can I piggyback off of what Nykea was saying in terms of diversity? Like, I think we got that. We got the diversity down right. And we went over this. We, being Chicago Association of Realtors Board of Directors, had an advance and led by Chelsea Hayes, who really took a deep dive on this element of diversity and inclusion. So I think we got it down right with diversity. We open it up to everyone to come. We got the inclusion part down, come and be a part, but we get stuck on the equity piece. And that speaks to what Nykea was talking about. Equity means give me the tools to be successful. And I think that is a missing link, because you want me to be a part of the situation, but you don't want to give me access to the resources. You don't want to give me the tools so that I too can be successful. So when we talk about solutions, really think about, am I really walking the walk and talking the talk in terms of equity? We throw that around very loosely, but think about it. Are you providing an equitable environment for people to be successful?
And what's interesting about that?
Yeah, and Tracey, I know this question may come up later of like I think we were talking about what can someone do? And so people reach out, well, I want to do something, And so it doesn't start with just one thing. And I think, as Nykea was stating, as you look around, like people that are looking around, if they're in leadership positions and able to say, you know what, I think we maybe need some diversity in this group, or maybe we can reach out, because if we're not sitting in those rooms, then who is? And so I would say, for those who are sitting in those rooms, maybe just say, because it's not one thing, it's not one person, it won't happen overnight. You can write a check and make yourself feel good, but as a long term, it's going to take time to say, hey, you know what, we're looking for some designated brokers, and then that would put the onus on us too, to kind of say, hey, you know what, we're looking for managing brokers to run XYZ offices. Do you have any diverse candidates that we can bring forward or to interview? So we can put ourselves in position, but that would call for people just thinking about it and reaching out and saying, hey, you know what, we could use some more diverse leadership. That's something we need to work toward in 2020, 2021. How do we do that? Like, not just saying it, but how do we do that? Let's put a plan in place to do that by year end. Maybe we need to, have some training. Maybe we need to run some sort of grant programs to kind of develop our internal leaders, whatever that may be from a company, corporate standpoint. But if you're in that position, and you may find yourself, like Andy, you were saying, I don't know what I don't know. Like, hey, I don't know what I don't know. And if you're asking people that look like you to release a statement or things like that, how would you know what to release if you're just releasing a statement and it's not been looked over, and that's how the companies end up with these faux pas, as we say in the past, when you had the person come out with a noose around the neck or thinking that's good marketing. So you need people in rooms to kind of tell you, pull your coattail, and not just have a check the box person, but somebody who is an equity thought partner as well, and want to move the needle forward in a positive way. So we can sit here and say, woe is me, this, that, and the other, but how do we move forward solutions like Nykea was saying? And then Tracey, when we're talking about what are the tools needed? If we're noticing a fair percentages of minority-owned broker shops, is there something that we need to do to, are there tools in place? Because I'm sure everyone, all 15,600 members would have like a chance to be a Chicago Real producer. How is that possible? If you're saying to me that the top 500 brokers, and you're telling me that's never even a goal, I mean, that's never even possible for me to even be considered. So you're like, what, like you were saying, we need to rethink that. And so those little things go a long way. I mean, if you have events, to say, hey, let's just, maybe we're having it in a different place. That could even start with just having it in a different location. Like, hey, is there some place we're looking for X, Y, Z? And just bringing in a different setting sometimes open people's eyes, not just when there's a big development happening or there's a buzz, but just, hey, this is a nice, this is a place that an area of town is in the 77 communities. Maybe we want to move to different locations and different ethnicities of the city. So it's just little steps like that, just thinking outside. I don't even want to say thinking outside the box, just having a different opinion or a different look at things to say, what can we do differently that we haven't done? And shame on us, but you know what? Let's move forward and and then we would have to support that as well. So we can't ask for things and sit dormant and say, see, he's still not doing it. He only did this, that, and the other. So I think it's a continuing working relationship.
And just to add on to what Sarah said, and I also think there has to be a mind change, because we have so many designated managing brokers, and I know Nykea's experienced it, Marki's experienced it. We get DM'd by agents all the time looking for help. And I've even been on phone calls with agents. Tracey, you might be experiencing it. I'm sure we call Sarah all the time. Sarah's the managing broker of the managing broker, especially for commercial. I hear agents all the time saying, Carrie, I need your help. And I'm like, well, what's the question? And then I can redirect them, because I'm a managing broker and I need to work with my agents. But what the common theme is my managing broker won't help me. And sometimes it's because of the thought process of the person. They don't even realize that they are not helping the minority group in their office. And then maybe they just don't know. And then when it comes to the technologies, a lot of agents don't even realize, and I'll just put it out there, we have the technologies available, but there are the underserved communities, and we don't train every office, and we're not even reaching out to a lot of these offices to train them. Our local associations, our state associations, and yeah, even our MLS. Like, we are missing out on a huge opportunity.
I think for me, in terms of moving forward, it's education. I'm going to say this really slowly for everyone, every realtor that may be listening. An FHA loan and a VA loan are appropriate. They shouldn't be treated differently. You shouldn't be, to Tracey's point about, overanalyzing the deal. For some reason, and this is an example of what I've experienced recently. If I have a client that has an FHA or VA loan, it's treated as less than in the marketplace. So if I'm, presenting this offer, I may get a call from a broker, well, can they go conventional? FHA money spends, people. VA, these are veterans that have served our country, and we are putting them through an extra layer of scrutiny. So to me, this is back to our organizations to educate the realtors in our communities about why these loans were created in the first place, number one. And number two, to understand the process of how to get from contract to closing. So again, this is a very common question I get from brokers. I've recently experienced it. And I don't know if any of the ladies is feeling safe enough to share, but I know for a fact that I've lost at least 3 deals in the last 3 months because my clients had a VA approval.
Well, and I have a multiple offer situation, I have to explain to my clients, because they have an FHA loan in the marketplace, it will probably be, and then I'll get a call from the broker saying, well, can they go conventional and all these things. And, it's just like, are we tiptoeing on, some other issue? And then I wanted to kind of bring back to a point. I can't remember who brought it up earlier. We are, we love who we are and our background, but we work with all ethnic groups. So just because we walk in the door, you don't have to put me with the Black group. I mean, just look at me as Sarah, we all don't have to be huddled up like, oh, we can just put her there. And okay, she'll feel comfortable in this. And then like for committees, we don't all have to be on a diversity committee. We could be on land use, zoning, commercial, there are other things. So I think that's a misconception that you may have an Asian or a certain ethnic group and you may put them together. They coming in, oh, we can work with that team. Like we may, we can work in luxury markets, we can work in all different markets, but that doesn't mean that, that we are going to be comfortable. We want you to put us there, but we work with, like most brokers, everybody works, we all work together. And we want to learn about different, some agents work in different areas outside of where they live because they want to get an educational community. Their kids may go to school there, they may be thinking of moving, so they may work with a diverse team. And I think that's fair, but I don't think people need to just automatically assume to put this person with this team because they all look alike. So I think sometimes people think that like they're doing us a favor, like, oh, let's just put them there because they'll be more comfortable together. So.
I'm gonna piggyback. I want to say two things. One thing, we're all friends. And so outside of real estate, we're friends. We hang out with one another outside of real estate. With that being said, we will come together. And when we get to an event, we will disband because we're going to go work the different networks. I might go over to CRS. Somebody might go to Women's Council. We have 2 federal political coordinators on this call. I mean, so we're walking in and we want to cover the whole grounds because we need to have a little insight in every corner of the room. But this is one thing I wanted to say. One is not enough. That means that just because you give one donation or you have one Black or you have one Asian or you have one Hispanic, everybody and they point it out. Because when people talk about having friends, I got one Black friend. One Black friend ain't enough. Let me let you know, you need you a whole congregation of Black friends because we all different, right? So stop telling me I don't have just one white friend. I have so many white friends, I can't count how many white friends. That's the number everybody needs. And so one is not enough. We have a friend, she's the first Black to own a franchise from this company. That's not enough for that company so that you will know. Or if you have franchises and you don't have any solely owned Black brokerages, you're the problem, okay? So there should be multiple Black owned brokerages based on the over $1 trillion we as Black people spend in this great country. Don't say we don't have the money. Maybe we are not vesting the money correctly, but clearly we got the money because we're spending over $1 trillion. I think it's close to 1.2, if not a little bit more right now. So one is not enough. And what Sarah said, I don't even like serving on diversity committees. I didn't even really want to do race panels because I don't want you to pigeonhole me into that. I am a social media and technology goddess. I don't want to be on the diversity committee because you put all the Black people on the diversity committee and all of us have other skill sets that can be, we're stronger at a whole lot of other things outside of diversity. Just because we're Black did not make us the diversity leader. Give us something else. Put us on professional standards. Put us on RPAC fundraising. Put us on something else. They giving me the look now because I'm doing a call.
How about the MLS? How about the MLS?
Put us on the MLS board of directors. Put us on something else because we are brilliant.
I didn't know you did social media, Marki. Is that
you did? Oh, you didn't know, Andy? Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm being sarcastic. So
No.
just to kind of have a little fun with you. That's why we actually did this on Marki's page initially, and then I shared it to mine because we kind of talked about it. I'm like, yeah, I think you're going to get a lot more views and traction than I am. I don't even think my friends are maxed out. I remember when we knew each other for a while and we're Facebook friends for, up until recently, I think this year or last year. And I know kind of going off topic here, but I had to text Marki to unfriend someone so I could be her friend. And so I'm sorry, whoever got the boot, if you got unfriended by Marki in the last 5 months, it was my fault, my bad. Let me pivot here and go to, because I think this, and all of you have touched on this, but not like tacked it head on. So talk just directly why it's so challenging for many Black men and women to succeed in a system that was not really designed for them. Like, what are forces at play that's working against that whole hierarchy or that progress?
Well, I think it's
our data guru explained earlier. Because it's a numbers game. I mean, you can take the faces, the ethnicity out of it. It's a numbers game. You make X, Y, Z amount of money if you're on a certain part of time. You service a certain client. I mean, that goes for realtors. That goes for lenders. That goes for just attorneys work. You know, you still have some attorneys that they need a what do you call it? You pay before closing. Like most of them, you get paid at closing, but some of them, like, you know, this deal may not close, so I need you to have a retainer prior to it. So we're forced to kind of work around just different rules because of we just work 10 times as hard for a tenth of money. And so that's, you know, as Nykea pointed out the stats earlier, that's the reason why people want to work in diverse communities, to kind of educate themselves, make a better living, or, you know, and because they, like I said, we all want the same services for ourselves and our family.
Can you say which question you said, which question that was, Andy?
Just why is it so challenging just for many Black men and women in real estate, like to succeed in a system that really wasn't designed for them?
Well, and I'll just, to kind of give everyone an example, like when I built my business based on relationships, people I already knew.
Sure.
And when I started in 2001, and I started in Wheaton, and I was the only Black person in the office. But I just fit right in because I think I belong anyway. So I remember whenever I would do open houses, no one ever hired me. I actually had someone hire me in the Wheaton office who happened to be, she's Latino, and she ended up buying in a community way far away from Wheaton. I typically, when I get referrals from outside of the area, and it doesn't matter who sends the person, if a lot of times that person that was referred to me doesn't know I'm Black yet, because my name is Carrie. And then I will, we'll have a conversation, I'll show homes, and they'll never call me back again. I've had that happen. I've had, in one scenario, and I can't say this is my favorite, but it was an experience that made me realize that what we need in our industry is we need people to be advocates. So I had a referral from Idaho to an area not far from here. And I won't give you the full scenario so people don't really know who I'm talking about, but it was a $500,000 deal. It was a listing. And I went to the property, Women's Council referral, went through the property like I normally would. I always come with my measuring tape. I tell them, the homeowners, what they need to do. We get ready to fill out paperwork. And I remember leaving the property and the husband literally went off on the wife. And I thought, yep, he doesn't want to hire me because I'm Black. And the wife told me later, I told him, you're hiring her, period. That's what it is. So sometimes what we need in our industry is someone to be an advocate. Now, it doesn't mean I'm going to help everyone that sees me. And another thing that might need to happen, and this could be a challenge, and Marki might challenge me on this one, is I had a realtor come up to me after real estate education, ethics training. And a lot of times in class, my Black students won't tell their stories in class, but they'll tell me after class. I'll have a line. And I had an agent say, Carrie, working in Naperville, I set up the appointment, seller coming into the office. She saw the guy pull up, red pickup truck. He walked into the office. She greeted him with a handshake, and he shook her hand and said, we will not be working together, and walked out. My challenge for us is we have about 5 or 10 minutes to convince you that we know what we're doing. Could that real estate agent had said, you know what, give me 10 minutes to earn your business? He may have still never hired her, but could we change the narrative? Could we do that? That's where I'm waiting for Marki to say, yeah, but some people are already defeated. So there you go.
Andy, the answer to your question is in the question itself. The system was never designed for us. So we've had to make our way through a system that was never designed for us to succeed. And every woman on this call has just gone over and above. And to this day, we're still questioned, or we're still looked at as, maybe if you just do one additional thing, we'll accept you. And I'm sorry, Tracey, I interrupted you, but to me, the answer is because it was never designed for us to succeed. We've had to find our way through a system that's just not built for us.
No, that's okay, Nykea. I was going to say, actually, to your point and to Carrie's point, when we talk about having an advocate, a lot of people that have influence, when we have situations like this, when we feel like we're not doing enough, what can we do? Let's do a training. Let's do a training and let's check the box so that we are in compliance in terms of, we don't want to get sued. We're doing the right thing. You can't train a person's heart condition. If a person in their heart just feels the way that they feel, that's not something a textbook could change overnight, or a 2-hour continuing education class. That's not going to change. So in order for us to really, for those on that are viewing this and you want to say, well, what really can I do? How can I go beyond? I think if you are in a position where you have influence and you can be an advocate for someone, hold each other accountable when you see someone who's fighting against that. Don't just check the box and say, well, let's just do a training so we fulfill that portion of our obligation. Let's go a step further and let's start changing hearts and minds through person-to-person contact.
I love it. I relate it to like we're raising kids. I have 4, so my house is in utter chaos. But the goal for at least me as a father is like, you want to change their heart. They do something, they mess up. I don't just want to put them in timeout for 10 minutes. Okay, you're good, you're done. I don't want them to do that action again. So when they repeatedly do an action, it's kind of like, okay, well, I have to reflect on myself as a parent. I'm like, this isn't getting through. So I like what you said there. This goes so much deeper than just this industry. Obviously it is a real estate conversation, so we're going to focus on real estate, but this is it's a heart issue. It's a human condition. It's sin. And so, like, what can white people do? I'll just ask, like, what can I do? And I'm asking this for myself. If anybody on this just happens to be listening and they glean from it, cool. What can white people do just to help understand better? I mean, obviously, I think this has helped, but just to help promote equality in general.
I would say, first, I think white people should have a conversation with themselves and accept the fact that they don't know. That would be the first. In having dialogue, ask questions only for the purpose of seeking to understand. And what I've come to realize, and I've seen it on even some of my posts, there's always a comparison, and there is no comparison. So I want white people to know right now, there is no comparison. And let me give you an example. Someone said that their Caucasian son, 13, was in fear of going out the house, okay? And in these times, so that means that your child is in fear right now. How about my husband is 52, degree, 6-figure job, and he has to strategically plan how he navigates the city of Chicago due solely to the fact of the color of his skin or where it ain't cool to go. Shouldn't no educated, hard-working family man who takes care of his child and look, a child he is not the biological father to, have to ever guess or question how he's going to navigate? So the fact that a child is in fear right now versus grown Black men who have to strategically plan their day based on the color on one thing, because everything else they've accomplished, on the color of their skin. So I think you should ask yourself the question first. Then you should ask us some questions, keeping in mind that there is no comparison, because one thing that is clear, we were born Black, we're going to die Black, and we're going to always be judged by someone according to the color of our skin. But you will never feel how we feel when we can look at your face and see it change once you see us.
I think
I
Andy.
want to come behind that.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Madam Governess.
No, I said I don't want to come behind that.
Oh.
That's it right there.
I'm just letting it sink in.
There's really nothing to be said. I think the education piece, I think now is a perfect time for people to acknowledge that they just may not know. And I think it's a great time. I'm going to shout out Chelsea Hayes from the Coaching Factory again. You guys look her up, because dialogue is imperative, right? But yeah, a focused and a carefully crafted dialogue is just that much more important. And so I've had the awesome benefit to work with Chelsea for a couple of years, and I think she really is not. There's something for someone to just talk to you and instruct you, but the self-discovery through carefully crafted dialogue is even that much more impactful.
And to piggyback off what you said, seek to ask questions to learn, not because some people are not, they have no intention of learning. They want to tell their side of the story, make you, and just be combative. And so we can pick that up, like you were saying on some of your posts. Like, some people have no intention of learning or trying to do better. They went into it not to do better, because if you want to do better, you just, you ask questions, and like Andy, you're sitting here, you're listening, you're like, hey, look, I don't know. But some people are intentionally on your, or want you to, want to bait you to get into some sort of argument and, some sort of back and forth conversation. We don't even discuss that. But if you're not, and if you are, that's kudos to you. I just won't have a conversation like that. But just know that it's okay to ask questions, because I mean, we've been in situations where it's foreign. It's like any foreign situation. You're like, what is this? Or like you go to a foreign country, where am I? How do I get here? So I think if you look at it from that, as basic as that, and as innocent as that, like I'm in the middle of Paris, I'm trying to get to the Louvre, to the Eiffel Tower, how do I get there? And so if you think of that, there's no bias, there's no intent, your goal is to get to the Eiffel Tower. Sarah, you know what, I was thinking about this may have sounded a little different. What do you think about that? So if you think of it as basic as asking for directions to get to a goal in mind, I think that's what kind of should be the baseline. But when somebody tries to bait on dialogue and trying for you to see what they see, like if you tell me the Eiffel Tower is this way, but I could, no, but if you go this way, so their intent is not to get you there. Their intent is to bring you over to their side for whatever reason. But if you are, because we can tell if somebody is seeking to ask questions to learn. That's because we're just trained to kind of pick up on things just on who we are. But if you are just looking at a basic, okay, and then you can have a true dialogue. Like it's okay, and people know when they cross the line too, and when they want to cross the line.
Yeah,
I'd like to add that if you find yourself in a situation, well, not even a situation, but if like Sarah said, there's going to be some people who feel like, well, this doesn't apply to me. That's never been my experience. I don't know. I don't want to know. That will never happen to me and my family. I mean, there's nothing we can do about that. But for those who do want to learn, and to want, my grandfather used to always say, when you learn better, you do better. Hold each other accountable. Hold each other accountable, especially, a white person may not listen to me in my plight, but a white person may listen to another white person explain my plight, okay? To not say anything when you want to, that takes us back to a very popular quote by Desmond Tutu. If you are neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. So for me, it's holding each other accountable. Holding each other accountable.
And I was just mine is simple. you can only change you. So like Sarah said, having the debate with someone that's not ready to hear, and Mark, you got to chuckle out of this. It's like trying to plant seeds on rocks. Nothing's going to come from it. Nothing's going to grow. And, you know, there's scripture that backs that up. So I would say to everyone, you might not be right. So take a moment and just say, I need to learn from this. And just like everyone has already said, ask a lot of questions and be willing to listen to hear what someone may have gone through. And I'm not here to get all of you to watch movies, and I know Andy might bring this up about resources, but there's a movie out, and I had to watch it in an ethics class, and it was A Time to Kill. I'm just saying everybody should watch that movie because it'll make you rethink what someone is going through when you haven't lived their life.
And that's what we're trying to do, is like, if I was in your shoes, I'd have the same thing. Even when Marki called, I'm like, okay, from my mind, I'm like, this is going to be super uncomfortable, but that's how you grow. That is how you grow. And I'm like, I was like, I kind of said a quick prayer about it, but it was like God had already given me the answer before I even like started praying. Stop laughing. I'm glad you're on mute, Marki, because I would be feeding off your laughter if I could hear you. You know, it was one of those things where it's like, no, this needs to happen. And I think the more that we are uncomfortable, the more comfortable it'll be. I mean, you know, go back to your first real estate transaction. A lot of people on here are realtors. That was probably uncomfortable. Can I do this again? Yes. And then, you know, fast forward 10 years and it's great. So the question is, I guess, is how do we get there? Obviously we don't have a crystal ball, but what do you see unfolding in the future? I mean, as it, you know, relates to equality in real estate.
I've seen a lot of comments. So one thing, and we addressed this, so I want to reference, we were all a part of a panel before this panel that we had this discussion. A diversity panel includes diversity. Therefore, moving forward, I would challenge every organization, local, state, nationally, if you're going to have a diversity panel, I need you to look at your members and pull. You should have someone, sexuality, we need to have the heterosexual, homosexual, the whole LGBT lineup, Asian, African and African American is different, okay? So you need to reach deep to have a diversity panel. There needs to be someone from every walk of life on a diversity panel at any level, or that's not a diversity panel. That's people talking about diversity who don't know nothing about it, okay? The next thing is, I would even encourage my Black people, reach out. I intentionally, Andy, I called you, but let me say this, me and you talk and email in the past and we had a relationship, but I intentionally set my morning to reach out to people because I knew that if I didn't take the action, we might not receive, no one was necessarily might be reaching out to us because they might not have known how to approach the situation, which is why you stopped jogging and had to pray first, because you like, why is Marki calling me at 7:35 a.m.? Oh Lord, what did I do? I know that's exactly probably what you said. And you start looking around like maybe you had said something, right? So with that being said, I think that it's going to have to come from two places. And what I would say, you can reach out to us. We are not angry Black women. We really work hard that you will not perceive us as such. We are seeking to make a change, and we know it's going to take time. You gave me a luggage tag that says September the 28th, 2033. I'm clear I'll be financially eligible to retire that day, but I will not be retiring that day because the work that we need to do, it's going to take the rest of my lifetime for us to do it. So I'm in it for the long haul because we have a lot of work to do. We're going to need to take it one day at a time, but we're going to have to understand our differences and concentrate on solutions to solving our problems, because we have a problem.
It's very true. So we can wrap up with this because we're kind of on the hour. And also, I do want to clarify.
There's nothing else to say after that. There's nothing else to
Yeah.
say.
I want to clarify one thing when Marki says we are not angry Black women. I am not either. I know there might have been a little confusion on that, but just want to clear that up. So, what does this feel different? Okay, from the incidents with George Floyd, I think there has been an awakening, but like every incident, you know, it's 1 week, 2 week, a month, and then it kind of just goes away. Does this? I'll just ask you all. Does this feel different as far as permanent change? I don't know what that means, but like policies, you know, or maybe a worldwide heart change. Does it feel different?
It feels awakened.
I don't see any written solutions. So when, you know, I'll give you an example. Went to work for a real estate company, and they brought me in based on diversity and inclusion. And they didn't do any diversity. They didn't do any inclusion. And me and Zeke was not enough. Let me be clear about that. So what I want to know is, what is your written plan? Okay. I don't need you calling and talking. We need it on writing, and we need it in print, right? Because we need to be able to hold people accountable for what it is they say that they're going to do. Talking is done. We need to see action. We need to have a clear-cut plan of action, a strategic plan. When every board in this country, real estate board in this country, meet for their strategic planning meeting, this needs to be included, and they need to look at 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, because what we're clear about on this, and we didn't even discuss this, on the Chicago South Side, the looting, they destroyed what the great late Harold Washington put into place when I was in high school. And so I need to understand, how do we get back there? And that's going to take the rest of my lifetime, but it needs to be in writing. I'm tired of people talking. We don't need to talk no more. Let's see what that plan, that written plan of action is, so that we can hold people accountable and start checking it off.
I think it's different in that because of COVID-19, the world was in a pause. So I think had we not been in this moment of pause, if you will, we may not have gotten the attention that we're currently getting. So it's different in that regard, but you know, look at the news, there's still stuff happening. So until there's some very focused policy changes, and until people just say, you know what, let's self-analyze. What are we missing? And again, and because of that self-realization, we then start to change policies and add, you know, different elements to our organizations. That's when the real change is going to happen. But I think that the awareness level is different because we were all kind of on this global pause, if you will.
And to add on as a quick point, in addition to having it in writing, because we can put stuff in writing and look real pretty in a binder, what happens if we don't do that? What are the consequences? If we don't do, we need to do this by year in 2020. If we don't achieve that, then X, Y, Z. Because, you know, my business is certified as a minority and a woman-owned business with the city, but they have a set aside, like if they can't find a business, then they can pay a penalty or something like that, or, you know, miraculously they can't find one. So I'm sure that if you put some diversity goals out there, you really work at them and put them in writing, I'm sure that it can be met. But what is that? Like, but you can put them in writing in a pretty binder, you know, kind of like your disaster recovery plan. People have it in a binder, they just don't know what it is. Because if you put it in writing and it's not a tone of your company, then it means absolutely nothing. How do you ingrain that into people that you hire, people you bring on? Are you sharing this with people that you're tying to your brand? And until that happens, you know, it comes like real producers. We are developing a team of XYZ of inclusion, and just share with people, because sometimes when you share your mission, people want to be drawn to you just because of that. And the people that don't want to be part of that, you don't want them anyway. So are they living in your mission statement or your core company values? What does that look like? And if you have these goals in place in writing and you want to have that moving forward, what are the consequences? If we don't hit these goals, XYZ, or don't even say you won't hit them, we are going to really work hard to hit them by doing these things.
I'd just like to add, as we start talking about the rebuilding process, people who have influence, who may have the money to quickly step in and help with the efforts, don't come in with the thought process of come in, rebuild, and take over. If you're really going to be about rebuilding and helping and building sustainable, thriving communities, don't look at it from the mindset, this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity for me to help, but to take. So I don't know what needs to happen. If we need to have policies in place, we need to have some legislation, we need to have informed certain task force to ensure that that doesn't happen. I think that's a good starting point.
And last quick point, sorry, and we keep talking about policy changes. We talk about that because we go to DC and we lobby. So I said for those that are not involved, because some people may not even know who their local elected officials are from the local level. So I just would say, even at the smallest level, know who they are, get engaged with them, figure out what you can do, and know what the reading, because it's all public. Read when it comes to real estate, like these policy changes behind the scenes. While they have all this noise in the front, there's major policy changes happening in the housing community that we need to be aware of, and that kind of affects where we move forward with as a result of this COVID, things like that. So get involved from a policy level, making changes from your local official, state, national, because that's where the real in writing happens.
So I know we said we were going for 90 minutes, and we can get together. We can talk for hours, right, Andy? And we've had consistently 100 people with us just riding for 90 minutes. What I would like to do, because Andy, I'm always going to come and challenge you. I think that it would be a great idea for us to do a panel face-to-face in the city of Chicago as one of your programs. And it doesn't have to be us. Like I said, there's a lot of diversity out here. It doesn't have to be us. But I would love to see. Yeah, we know some people look, Tommy Choi, he been on here with us this morning, Nancy Suvadomini. Heck, we can have the liaison, Ezekiel Morris. We know people. To further the discussion in a face-to-face environment would be great on a collaboration, not only here in the city of Chicago, potentially at the National Association of Realtors Conference, not the one this year, but potentially the next year, at our legislative meetings. We often reach out to all the different organizations, the Women's Council, VARAP, NAGLARAP, the whole gamut. There should be a representative from every last one of those organizations on a true diversity panel, because we're speaking really for women of color, right? And we're just one part of the entire piece, but our men are the ones that are the most discriminated against.
I'm game. I mean, especially when in-person events resume, whenever that may be. I was thinking of the most unsanitary place to do an event now. As a joke, I'd be like, hey, come to our event. It's at the Chuck E. Cheese ball pool or something. I was like, I know, sorry. That's where my mind goes. But yes, definitely, 1000%. So what I would like to do, just to kind of wrap up, final thoughts here, if you found any value in this, I know, Marki, your post, I think it was about a week and a half ago, not this Monday, but last Monday, very raw, very authentic. The 77, just the Chicago Realtors Cleanup and Recovery Fund that goes to CAR. So if you found, and by the way, this is for, if you're in a position to do this, cool. If you're a small business owner and your business got ransacked and looted, this is not for you. So I would like to post the link. If you want to donate money, it just goes to clean up the neighborhoods. It's going to go to those small businesses and people who just need help. So I will post it on my timeline. And I want to wrap up. By the way, does anybody have any kind of final thoughts? I got a quote I'm going to read, and we can be on our merry ways.
Nope, just happy to be part of the discussion. So I want to thank you for even giving us this opportunity and you having a platform to do it. So, and Marki with her Facebook, because I'm clearly not a Facebook Live, but I just want to thank you for even having the, I guess, courage to kind of say, put your own truth out there to speak about it and just be raw about what you experience and how you feel, and to have us a part of that, not even really knowing, Marki, but maybe of us, but not really knowing us or what you may get from us. So I definitely appreciate that.
Gracious with me.
Yeah, I definitely thank you so much for both you and Marki always looking to have these conversations. I think for people watching, the takeaway is to search your heart, because if you truly want to change, it starts in your own heart. When we look at conversations, if you're in a relationship, you don't have a conversation one time, right? It is a constantly evolving conversation, and that's really how you should be approaching this, in my opinion.
Andy, I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity as well to give us this platform. And I do appreciate you starting off by saying you didn't know. I think that a lot of people should take that leap of courage to say, I don't know, and I want to understand, instead of making assumptions on what you think I might want to hear. So thank you for being just transparent. Thank you for being honest, opening up your heart and saying, hey, I don't know, and I want to do better. Also, thank you, Marki, for including me in this discussion. This is great.
And for me, just thank you. Yes, Andy, keep doing what you're doing. And I'm pretty sure everybody that's on this panel, if you're watching, we'd be open to a conversation. Now, it's about 3 weeks to get on Marki's calendar.
Normally 3 months.
Unless you're jogging and she calls you, that's the only exception.
Right.
That's the only exception to the rule. And I do use the word jogging intentionally. I used to run, now I jog. Let's be honest. I'm 40.
Hey, Andy, let me say this. I reached out to you because historically, when I've reached out to you, you've always taken action. And in the past, I have shined light on some diversity issues and talked to you about people who I felt deserved to be included in Real Producers Magazine. And we went over the numbers. I don't know if you remember that, said at the restaurant, run over the numbers. And I did refer some people to you who I definitely thought should be included. And so I just want to thank you for taking action, because I will say this, I'm clear on who I would call my friends who just happen to be white, because when I made them calls last week, every last one of you took action. So I thank you for being the person I thought you were.
I look at it like this. So, when we hop off of this, we're not going to solve the world's problems. We're not going to solve America's problems. So when we hop off this is my takeaway. Self-reflect. There's actually a lot of stuff out there on Netflix regarding issues like this. I mean, that's quick at your fingertips. We can post some stuff in the chat, but I look at it like running across the United States 3,000 miles. Okay. I can't do that on my own. I mean, I probably could if I had a couple months, but what I can do is I can run a mile. I can hand the baton to somebody else. They can run 2 miles. So if there's 1,000 of us running 3 miles each, we're going to get the job done. So whatever your mile is, focus on that. And I wanted just kind of give 2 resources. I watched it was a Keller Williams Lincoln Park conversation with you mentioned Zeke Morris, who I don't know, but I watched that and I friended him on Facebook, and he's probably like, who the hell is this guy? But that being said, hopefully accept
He'll accept you.
No pressure or anything. And Tommy Choi. And so I typed this quote out from Zeke Morris. I thought this was just really profound. It says, we earn the courage to speak up. We're at a moment that all folks need to understand that their voice counts. We are conditioned that there are a lot of things that we don't speak up about because it's better to get through it and live to see another day. Become aware of the consequences of not speaking up. So I encourage people to watch that. And then this was all prompted. I mean, there were many factors at play, but I got to give my friend Colleen Rippey a shout out in Baltimore. She runs Baltimore Real Producers, and she did something similar to this on last Thursday. And I watched hers, and just the timing of it was, I watched it Thursday, Marki calls me Friday, and I'm like, wow, God, you're just kind of throwing this in my lap. It was almost to the point of like, if I don't do this, I was being disobedient. So those are two races. I encourage everybody here, if they want to fill their mind with more positivity and just be able to relate and self-reflect more, of those two conversations will. So the one with Baltimore Real Producers, her name's Colleen Rippey, and then the one with that Keller Williams Lincoln Park put on with Tommy Choi and Zeke Morris. So
Can you
I
share
appreciate
those
it.
links in the chat? Can you share those links in the chat possibly, or
In the
no?
feed. Yeah, on
In the
Facebook.
feed on Facebook. In the feed on Facebook.
Do you want me to do it right now? I'm a
Yeah,
guy.
or
Can only do one
whenever.
thing
You
at a
you
time.
can you can take your
So,
time.
yeah.
We're gonna come back because we're gonna get a lot of comments throughout
Wait a minute, before you end,
course of the
Marki,
day.
before you
Yeah.
end, I just want to remind, in the feed, I'm going to post some books that people might want to check out, but the one I think everyone, there are two I think everyone should really read or listen to on Audible, is Talking to Strangers by Malcolm Gladwell. It'll make you think about how we perceive people when you meet them. And then Blink. Blink is an older book, but it really helps you understand why even police officers react the way they do.
And since we're shouting out books, kudos to our CEO, Black women, they may want to read The Memo. That is a great read. We're midway through. And then Marki's book.
Oh yeah, I was pointing to the memo. I was pointing to the
The
memo.
memo is the memo, they call it the Black Woman's Lean In. So,
Right. Yep.
yes.
Right. I have mine on Kindle. And here's, wait, we all got our book. And this one is just a hard read. This is just hard, but it'll make
No,
so
but
many.
the memo is an
Racism.
easy read. It's a good read. Black women, we need to, it's very, it's you know, and MMC, Michelle Mills Clement, thank you for the suggestion. We went to a book signing, and so written by African American women, because there was no lean in for us. Remember my lean in, and everybody was running around. So that's our lean in. So, and Andy, I encourage you to read that as well. I may even send you a copy. You know what? I think I may do that. Because I think you should read that, actually, because it's an easy, great read.
I'm game for whatever. I appreciate y'all. Carrie, Marki,
Thank
Tracey,
you.
Sarah, Nykea. Thank you guys. This has been great. And yes, Marki, whenever in-person events resume, we can definitely get something like that on the docket.
Thank you. Facebook, we're gonna cut off for now. Talk to you guys later.
Thank you.
Bye.
Woo!
Stop recording, Marki, unless you want
Oh,
this to be
hold
a
on, let me
part of
no,
the
I don't want this to
conversation
be a
after the
part of
conversation.